They listed the house I paid for without telling me. And guess who the real estate agent was? My brother. Hi, I'm Lauren. For 7 years, I quietly paid my parents' mortgage, skipped vacations, covered their bills, and they still called me a freeloader. The day I stopped paying was the day everything collapsed, and not because of money, but because the truth finally surfaced. What would you do if the people you loved most used your silence against you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to set a boundary that cost you everything? Drop your story in the comments. I'm listening. I arrived 5 minutes early, groceries in hand, the paper bag leaving condensation against my jeans from the milk carton inside. The porch light flickered once when I rang the bell, just enough to remind me that no one had gotten around to fixing it. Again. The front door creaked open, and Mom didn't greet me with a smile, just a quick, "Shoes off, please," before disappearing into the kitchen. Her voice was flat, like I was a neighbor dropping by, not the person who'd paid their mortgage on time for the last 16 months. I left my shoes by the hallway rug and headed into the kitchen, setting the groceries down by the sink. No one commented. No one asked if I was tired after work. The counter was already cluttered with boxed potatoes and a foil-covered dish Mom had clearly picked up from that overpriced deli near Fair Oaks Boulevard, the one she always insisted was homemade enough. Ethan strolled in a few minutes later, earbuds in, twirling a new pair of matte black headphones around his neck. "Mom got me these," he said, not even glancing my way. Noise-canceling, studio grade. He said it like he'd earned them. Mom was stirring something in a pot, probably boxed gravy. "He needs them for his editing," she said, as if that explained the $200 price tag I was pretty sure I'd seen on the credit card bill last week. The card linked to my account. I didn't say anything, not yet. Dinner was served at exactly 6:30. Roast chicken, green beans from a can, and those famous mashed potatoes. The smell was warm and inviting, even if it lacked soul. Dad was already seated, remote in hand, scrolling past a local news story without really watching. I slid into my old spot across from Ethan. The chair still wobbled. Mom set the food down and turned to Ethan with a soft smile. "Tell them about your new video, sweetheart." He launched into it, voice full of unearned confidence. "So this one's about the collapse of social trust, you know? Real edgy stuff. I filmed the whole thing on my phone with the mic clipped to my hoodie." I chewed slowly, nodding as if it mattered. Dad said nothing, just nodded along with each pause in Ethan's monologue like he was trained to. "And he's gaining traction," Mom added. "Someone from a podcast commented last week. Might be something big." "That's great," I said quietly. Then I reached for the water pitcher and poured a glass, hands steady despite the simmer in my chest. "I've been thinking about cutting back a little." The table stilled. "With student loans kicking in again," I continued, "I might need to scale down a bit, just temporarily." Ethan didn't miss a beat. "So you're finally cutting the freeloading?" My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Mom chuckled like it was a sitcom. "Don't be mean." Dad didn't look up. He just adjusted the volume slightly on the remote and shifted in his seat. I let the fork rest on the plate and looked down at the mashed potatoes. They were over-whipped, gluey, and too salty. I'd bought the mix. I'd paid for the roast, too, and the utilities, and the property tax last December when Mom said the mail got mixed up. But I was the one being called a freeloader. No one said anything else. The conversation turned to traffic, then to Ethan's latest followers on TikTok. No one asked about my job, though I'd just wrapped a month-long audit 2 days early and saved my department over $6,000 in projected costs. After dinner, I cleared the table without being asked. Plates scraped into the trash, forks clinked in the sink. Mom disappeared into her room to rest her eyes. Dad was back on the couch. Ethan wandered upstairs, humming a tune I didn't recognize. I scrubbed the plates under hot water until my fingers wrinkled. Then I wiped down the counters, stacked the leftovers into containers, and tossed the empty potato box in the recycling. No one noticed. No one ever did. I stood in the kitchen for a moment longer, letting the silence settle around me. The fridge buzzed softly behind me. The ceiling fan spun slowly above. I looked around the room that had once smelled like cinnamon and Sunday pot roast, and all I felt now was distance. As I stepped toward the door, I glanced over at the calendar hanging next to the fridge. March was nearly over. Another spring, same routine. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. I just left, walking barefoot down the front steps to my car. I sat behind the wheel, keys still in hand, and exhaled. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But I did ask myself for the first time in a long while, why am I still doing this? The wind picked up just as I stepped off the elevator. Dry leaves scraped against the sidewalk outside, swirling in little half-hearted circles beneath the streetlights. Sacramento in October was always like this. Crisp air, amber skies, the smell of something faintly woodsy that made you feel like change was supposed to happen. I dropped my keys in the ceramic bowl by the front door and slipped off my jacket, letting it fall over the back of the kitchen stool. My apartment was quiet as always. A soft scent of lavender hung in the air from the diffuser I'd refilled that morning, and the faint hum of the refrigerator was the only real sound. The eucalyptus plant on the windowsill leaned slightly toward the fading light. I had forgotten to rotate it again. That made me pause. Then my phone buzzed. Bank notification. Your scheduled transfer to Family Mortgage AutoPay is due in 24 hours. I stared at the screen for a long moment, not because I was unsure, but because my body still hadn't caught up with my mind. 7 years, every month, on time, without fail. I walked over to the dining table, sat down, and opened the banking app. The edit payment button blinked up at me like it was daring me to press it. I tapped it. Slowly. No music. No drama. Just breathe. Cancel auto payment? Yes. The screen went still. For a second, I waited for the guilt to roll in. Some wave of anxiety. Maybe even shame. But there was nothing. Just stillness. I sat back in my chair, let my arms fall to my sides, and watched the ivy leaves on the windowsill tremble in the wind that pushed through the old window seams. Then I stood, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of red wine. I didn't drink it, just held it, watching the color catch what little light the room offered. It was my version of restraint. A toast to myself, I guess. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Camille. Camille. Long day? Me. The longest. Camille. Want to come by? I made soup and accidentally baked 2 loaves of sourdough. I smiled. Camille always claimed to cook by accident, but her kitchen was a temple of intent. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I turned my phone face down on the counter and went to bed early. Saturday morning came with that clean, cold sunlight that makes you believe in second chances. I pulled on my favorite hoodie and walked the 3 blocks to the farmer's market. There was something comforting about rows of root vegetables, chatty old women selling jam, the smell of cinnamon from the mini donut stand. I picked up a small bag of apples, mostly out of habit. As I was debating between tart and sweet, my phone buzzed again. Deborah. If you're going to the market, get tart apples. Ethan likes those. No, hi. No, how are you? Just an instruction like I was still the delivery girl. I read it twice, then tucked my phone back into my pocket. I didn't even bother replying. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the family house. Not because I wanted to, but because some part of me still clung to unfinished business. The mailbox was stuffed with flyers and envelopes. I sorted through them quickly. Junk, catalog, junk, utility bill. Then I saw it. A letter from Valley Credit Union. My name printed cleanly on the envelope, but the return address wasn't mine. I slid it open right there on the porch. Inside was a statement, a familiar layout, same monthly format I'd seen dozens of times. Only now, the line that read, Destination Account didn't show the usual mortgage number. It showed a new routing path. Under Deborah Ortega, with Ethan Ortega listed as recipient. My stomach dropped. I looked again, hoping maybe I had misread it. Maybe it was some mix-up, but the dates matched. The amounts matched. These were my transfers, rerouted, hidden in plain sight. I turned the envelope over, as if the truth might fall out from some hidden crease. My hand tightened around the paper until it crinkled. I left without knocking, without dropping the apples. I got in my car, shut the door, and sat there with the engine off, the envelope still in my hand. The neighborhood looked the same as it always had. Same lawn ornaments, same plastic Halloween spider webs stretched across bushes, same flickering porch lights no one bothered to replace. But everything felt different now. I drove home in silence. No music, no calls, just the slow sound of my own breath. Back at the apartment, I poured another glass of wine, set it down, still didn't drink. I opened my laptop and stared at the banking dashboard. The numbers were all there, every month, every penny. I clicked to download the most recent statement. Then I pulled out a manila folder from the drawer below my printer and added the new letter to it. It joined a stack already too thick for one family. I closed the folder, exhaled, and whispered, "You knew what you were doing." No tears, not this time. Just a quiet question pressing against the edge of my chest. Why did it take me so long to stop? I told myself it was just another errand, just groceries. A quick drop-off before the weekend slipped away. The paper bag in my passenger seat rustled as I turned onto my parents' street. 2% milk, rotisserie chicken, a bag of tart apples Deborah hadn't asked for. But I knew she'd comment if I brought the wrong ones. Some part of me still hoped that showing up with the right things meant I still belonged. Or maybe I just hadn't learned how to stop trying. The house looked the same from the outside. Faded yellow paint clung to the siding like it was too tired to peel. A half-hearted pumpkin sat on the porch, carved into a lopsided grin. Dry leaves gathered along the driveway, blown in by the wind, but ignored by anyone with a rake. As I stepped out of the car, Mr. Delgado from next door waved at me from behind his hedge trimmer. "Hey, Lauren," he called out, wiping his gloves on his jeans. "You guys moving out?" I blinked. "What?" He pointed toward the front yard. "Saw a real estate guy here a couple days ago. Tripod, camera, the works. Thought maybe you were listing." I managed a tight smile. "Oh, I didn't know." He nodded, already turning back to his shrubs. "Could have been comps, I guess. But he took a few shots from your driveway." My mouth went dry. I left the groceries on the front step. Didn't even bother ringing the bell. Just got back in my car and drove home with the heater on full blast and my thoughts running too fast to catch. The moment I walked through my door, I dropped my bag and went straight to the laptop. My fingers moved on instinct. First Zillow, nothing. Then Redfin, still nothing. Finally, Realtor.com. There it was. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, centrally located home in Sacramento. Motivated seller, great potential. I clicked through the photos. Front porch, kitchen I once helped repaint. Living room where Ethan threw a tantrum over losing Mario Kart when we were 12. All laid bare for strangers to browse. And the agent, Ethan Ortega. His face smiled back from the corner of the listing. Headshot in soft lighting, blazer too big, confidence clearly borrowed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I opened the folder I'd created the day I canceled the mortgage payment. Contingency. Inside were 7 years' worth of records. Monthly statements, pay stubs, email chains, Venmo receipts labeled gas bill, repairs, urgent care dad. A running tally of things I covered because they couldn't swing it right now. I pulled up my bank app. Transfer history matched the dates of the mortgage, right up until 2 days ago. The paper trail was clean. I had the proof. But my name? Not on the deed. Not even in the footnotes. I sat still for a long time, the only sound in the room coming from the eucalyptus diffuser clicking off as the timer hit 0. A message popped up on my phone. "Ethan, you're being dramatic. Mom will explain." I didn't respond. I went back to the folder, selected everything, and renamed it. Severance. Because that's what this was now. Not a misunderstanding. Not a bump in the road. A cut. Clean, deep, and intentional. I closed the laptop, sat back in the chair. The apartment felt colder somehow, even with the heat on, but it also felt clear. It wasn't grief anymore. It wasn't guilt. It was the kind of quiet you only get after finally letting go of a weight you were never supposed to carry alone. The house was never mine. But the betrayal? That part belonged to me. The sky was the same color as the parking lot, flat and gray. Even the trees looked tired, their bare branches scratching at the windows like they'd forgotten what spring felt like. January in Sacramento had a way of making everything feel distant. I stepped into the office building, badge clipped, coffee in hand, pretending everything was normal. Pretending worked until it didn't. My phone buzzed as I reached my desk. Camille again. Camille. Did you see the video? I didn't even have to ask which one. The title was already making rounds. My sister's betrayal. How she evicted our family. I clicked. There was Ethan sitting in front of his ring light, face scrubbed clean, hair styled like he was heading to a daytime talk show. Hey guys, this is hard to make, but I can't stay silent anymore. My sister, yeah, her, she's trying to kick our parents out of their house, the house we grew up in. There were clips from our old home videos, photos of us in matching Christmas pajamas, soft music playing in the background, the kind of emotional weaponry you only use when you're trying to win a war by looking like the victim. I closed the tab. By mid-morning, the whispers started. People in the hallway glanced up too quickly when I passed. Someone in accounting said, "That's her," just loud enough for me to hear. A junior analyst posted something vague on Slack. Family should be sacred no matter what. And it got 6 thumbs up and 1 fire emoji. At lunch, Camille cornered me near the vending machines. "They're talking," she said softly. Like, seriously talking. HR got a few messages. Someone asked if you were under investigation. I didn't respond. I just pressed B7 for a granola bar and tried not to let my hand shake. "I don't believe them," Camille added. "But maybe it's time?" I nodded once, tucked the granola bar into my pocket, and went back to my desk. It happened just after 3 p.m. I was on a call with a client when the receptionist, Candace, knocked gently on my office door. Her face was pale. "There's a situation," she whispered. "In the lobby. They say they're your family." My heart slowed, then raced. I walked calmly step by step through the hall. The buzz of office phones and copy machines faded as I reached the stairs. I could already hear Ethan's voice echoing before I turned the corner. "She's trying to evict our parents," he was saying, arms flailing like he was on stage. "Can you believe that? Suing her own mother and father over money." My mother stood next to him, lips pursed, arms crossed tightly over a navy windbreaker. Ron hovered behind them, silent like always. "I'm not saying she's a bad person," Ethan continued, "but people should know who they're working with. Someone who'd put their own family out on the street." I stepped forward. "Enough," I said, my voice even. Ethan turned, already mid-smirk. "Oh, look, she does speak." I kept my hands at my sides, calm even as they trembled. "This is not the place," I said. "You made it public first," he shot back. "Threats, legal letters, we're family and you treat us like strangers." Ms. Green from HR appeared beside me like a quiet shadow. "I'm going to ask everyone here to leave," she said firmly. "This is a private workplace." My mother didn't move. Ron muttered something under his breath. I caught only the word ungrateful. "You've embarrassed yourself enough," I said softly. Ms. Green opened the door. It took them longer than it should have to walk out. Ethan turned back one last time. "She stole from us. Ask her what she did." Then they were gone. The building exhaled. Back at my desk, I sat in the quiet, trying to breathe. My hands were still shaking. I opened my drawer, pulled out the flash drive I'd been updating every week, mortgage records, bank transfers, screenshots, voice memos, texts. I opened my email and typed in a name I hadn't used in years, Mr. Daniel Alvarez. He used to work with my old firm. Now he ran his own legal practice. Quiet, precise, effective. Subject, urgent review. Body, I'm attaching a folder labeled evidence. It contains everything. I'm ready to talk. I hit send. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch, folder in hand. The one that had once been called contingency, then severance. Now, evidence. That was the only word left between us now. Before bed, I checked my email one last time. From Ms. Green. Subject, pending voluntary leave. Please review. I stared at the subject line, fingers resting on the keyboard. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just opened a blank document, titled it Statement of Record, and started typing. The text came just before sunrise, while the street lamps were still blinking against the pale gray sky. Deborah. He's not well. Come soon. No punctuation, no warmth. Just a command wrapped in concern. I stared at it for a long time. The last time I'd heard from her was through HR. Now she wanted me to come home, as if that word still meant anything. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat at the kitchen island and poured a cup of coffee I didn't want. The air smelled like toasted bread from the neighbor's unit. I let it fill the silence. Camille sent a message a few minutes later. Camille, if you go, don't go for them. Go for you. I didn't answer her either, but 2 hours later, I found myself merging onto I-80 with a travel mug in the cup holder and an ache in my chest I couldn't name. The hospital looked like every other hospital I'd ever been in. Pale walls, flickering fluorescent lights, the low buzz of machines, somewhere beyond closed doors. Even the smell was familiar, sanitizer mixed with something too clean to be comforting. I followed the signs to the ICU. The hallway was quiet, carpeted in that dull blue-gray they use to calm people. I found Deborah sitting alone in the waiting area, flipping through a celebrity gossip magazine with zero focus. She didn't look up when I approached, just turned a page like she'd been expecting me all along. You came, she said without surprise. I didn't sit. How is he? She shrugged. They're monitoring. It's his heart. I waited for more, but that was all she offered. After a moment, she closed the magazine slowly and finally met my eyes. He still loves you, you know. I nodded. But he watched me drown and called it devotion. She flinched. Barely. But I saw it. Her voice softened, just slightly. We were scared, Lauren. Scared of losing everything. We didn't know what else to do. So you picked him, I said. She didn't deny it. He needed help, she added. So did I said, but I showed up anyway. We stood in silence. People passed by in scrubs. A nurse pushed a cart with a soft beep trailing behind her. Someone coughed down the hall. It all sounded louder than it should have. You could go in, Deborah said gently. He's sleeping, but... No, I said. She blinked. He might not... No, I said again, steady this time. I'm not here for a goodbye. I'm here because I needed to see what this all became. She looked away. He's all we have left, she said quietly. Then you already lost me, I replied. There was no shouting, no accusations, just that. Words dropped like stones into a still pond. I turned and walked down the hall without looking back. The drive home was long. February trees leaned heavy against the freeway, bare and cold. The sky hadn't changed much from the morning. It still wore that winter fatigue, stretched thin over everything. When I got back to my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights right away. I dropped my bag by the door and sat on the couch, coat still on, watching the light shift through the blinds. An hour passed, maybe more. Then I checked the mailbox. Bills, junk, a coupon for half-off pizza, and one padded envelope, hand-addressed. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. Lauren, we raised you to be strong, maybe too strong. Mom. No apology, no explanation, just a sentence that tried to sound like love but landed like distance. I folded the letter once, then again, and slid it into the back of my drawer. Not because I wanted to save it, but because I needed to remember that even silence has weight. I stood at the sink, rinsing my hands under warm water, watching the steam curl into the air, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I owed them anything, not forgiveness, not anger, just the space to breathe. The sunlight filtered through the blinds just right that morning, golden and warm, the kind that made Sacramento look forgiving. I stood in the kitchen of my new townhouse, bare feet on cool tile, a fresh pot of tea steeping by the window. My phone buzzed once. Subject, title transfer confirmation. Body. You are now the sole name listed on the deed. I stared at the screen, not because I didn't expect it, but because the finality of it landed softer than I thought it would. They said I was disposable, but now I was the one holding the deed. I showered, pulled on linen pants and a faded green blouse, and made my way downtown to Mr. Alvarez's office for the last time. He greeted me with a quiet nod, a warm handshake. His desk, always immaculate, had one folder resting neatly at the center. "Just a few final signatures," he said, handing me a pen. I signed where he pointed. The ink dried quickly, like the paper had been waiting too long. "I'll keep a digital copy on file, but the physical deed's yours," he said, sliding the embossed folder across the table. "You earned this." I didn't reply right away, just rested my fingers on the folder's edge and took a breath that went all the way down. "Thank you," I said finally. Back at home, I placed the folder on the shelf next to my passport and birth certificate. It felt right there, like something that said, "I belong." Not because someone said I could, but because I said so. I made myself a cup of chamomile and lit a lavender candle. The flame flickered like a quiet punctuation mark on a chapter I hadn't realized I'd already closed. A soft knock came at the door a little after 2. No one was there when I opened it, just a padded envelope resting on the mat. It was addressed in familiar handwriting. I brought it inside, sat at the kitchen island, and opened it with careful fingers. Inside, a flash drive and a note. "We hope you remember the good parts. Mom." No apology, no names, no acknowledgement of what had happened. Just a wish, neither generous nor cruel, just distance. I didn't plug in the flash drive. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Instead, I folded the note in half and placed it in the drawer beneath the sink. The one with extra batteries and old instruction manuals. It didn't belong in the drawer with my important things, but I wasn't ready to throw it away either. Later that afternoon, Camille texted, "Camille, how's the silence treating you?" I smiled. For once, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like a choice. Me, quiet. Camille, the good kind? Me, the earned kind. I left my phone on the counter and walked barefoot through the hallway. The new hardwood creaked slightly beneath each step, but I liked that. It made the space feel alive. I paused in front of the spare bedroom, still empty, still undecorated, still mine. I stepped inside. The sunlight poured in through sheer curtains, and the room felt like a page with nothing written on it yet. "This one's for what's next," I whispered. There was no audience, no applause, no family watching with folded arms. Just me, and a home I didn't have to share with anyone who didn't see me. That night, I sat on the couch with a journal in my lap, leather-bound, soft from years of use. I flipped past entries filled with doubt, worry, questions scrawled in half-sleep. Then I wrote, "Closure isn't justice, but it's finally quiet," and I meant every word. I didn't keep the flash drive, and I never answered the note. But that day, walking barefoot through my quiet home, I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer waiting for their version of the truth. Sometimes the bravest thing we do isn't standing up to others. It's standing up for the part of ourselves that stayed silent too long. Family should be a place where love feels like shelter, not debt. And if we're lucky, we learn that peace isn't given, it's chosen. If this story reminded you of a time you had to let go to grow, I'd love to hear your reflections. Every story matters, especially the ones we carry in silence.